The internet has now become, in truth, the fantasy that was written years ago regarding Pandora's box. Everything you can imagine is there at the waiting fingertips of our youth, all the way from bestiality to sadomasochism, right on over to having sex with the dead. It's all right there. Yeah, I know there's parents out there that put a child watch, stopwatch or whatever on the video so they can't get to those places, but how many more don't care? How many more don't even think of it? So who should they be receiving their counsel and their guidance from? Their parents, the preacher, or the internet? And what a travesty it's been over the years that those we used to trust to send our kids to get help, like preachers and priests and high school teachers, have been getting busted right and left in the newspaper, paying hundreds of millions of dollars to try to settle the problem. But I'll tell you right now, time doesn't heal all wounds. Money can't take away the devastation and the memory of what happened to them. For some of them, they'll live the rest of their lives locked into a zone of insanity. It wasn't just a matter of wham bam, thank you, man. Some of these kids are doing the rest of their life in an insane asylum because of what was done to them by the people that we thought that we could trust. Many moons ago, I was director of Teen Challenge. The whole idea is that, it's people that are radically addicted to drugs. And that was cool. And the local pastors and youth pastors would bring their most troubled youth to me so that I could counsel them for them. Their idea was, well, Johnny had some backsliding days and he could relate to drugs and sex and rock and roll and so and so. And we've never been there, so we'll send him to Johnny. I used to think it was pretty cool that nothing could shock me. It dawned on me one day, wait a minute. Jesus was a virgin, and he reached out to prostitutes. He reached out to drunkards. He was not a murderer. He reached out to murderers. He touched the life of so many people he passed. And none of them could relate to him because he had some sin in his past and he really understood. And Jesus didn't turn people away because, I can't relate to that level of sin because I've never done it. No. What reached them was not familiarity with darkness. It was the spoken words from his mouth. Unconditional love and freedom through forgiveness. Now, where does that leave you? Where does that leave any of us? Jesus has told us to set the captive free and given us his word to do it. This is all we need to know. I'm going to read a little bit here from the book. So, you may be feeling contempt watching this video blog or reading this book. Just remember one thing. If the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't get upset, just put it on a box and give it to someone that's going to fit later down the road. Parent, maybe you feel uncomfortable talking to your child about sexual issues, or maybe you don't want to face what you suspect, that your child is sexually active. The bottom line is you have a responsibility to educate your child. If not you, then who? Do you really want them to learn about sex through the Hollywood Babylon, teen magazines, or their friends at school? I've never heard the preacher say much from behind the pulpit on these subjects, or nothing at all. And who better than the preacher to address the subjects of sex? After all, it was God's idea. He's the one that made it. And it's obviously not just for purposes of recreation, because he created pleasure centers in both the male and the female. It's time. It is time to turn the tables on the decadent plans of Satan on this planet. It's time to meet our responsibilities of God. It is time for us to reach out and get our kids. Now your kid may be 15, 16, and you've already damage is done, and he'll never change, at least by your help. That's where your prayer bones come in. You hit your prayer bones on the brick and you start crying out for them, for God to have mercy and find somebody that will minister to them. A lot of parents, though, after the kid reaches 7 years old, they think the kid's incorrigible, and they're going to take him to some kind of a minister to cast demons out of him. Get real. Remember what we covered on this particular blog. God has given us a responsibility. Jesus has given us His Word. And how many of you know His Word will make people everywhere whole? One final thing, parents or loved ones, if you are scared or you have a hard time speaking to your kids because you don't have much wisdom, well, I got news for you. James 1:5-8 tells us that if any of us lack wisdom, ask of God. And He who gives liberally to all men shall give it to him, but let him ask in faith, because if he doesn't have faith, he'll receive nothing from God. You want wisdom? Wisdom does not come through experience. Wisdom does not come through studying books. Knowledge comes from those things, but wisdom comes from the very heart of God Almighty. Well, I hope this has been informative. I may have one more video in regards to sexuality, and we'll be moving on to other segments and other chapters. God bless you and be encouraged.